this webinar, How Vendors Can Be a Resource, and we welcome all of you to the program. My name is Jacqueline Bird, BOMA Greater Dallas Secretary Treasurer. I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Please note that today's call is being recorded. All participants will be muted during the broadcast. However, you can enter a question for us in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen at any time, and we'll address your questions at the end of the presentation. If you're listening to the audio only and don't have access to the Q&A box, you can submit your questions to cbransford@bomadallas.org, and we'll address your questions after the broadcast. As we get started, I'd like to thank our BOMA Greater Dallas Cornerstone partners for their support. April Building Services, AMST Elevator Interiors, Interstate Restoration, LandCare, and Mooring Construction and Restoration. Now, it's also my pleasure to introduce to you our speakers for today's panel. With us today, we have Ben Manna of Five, Carol Gray of AMST Elevator Interiors, Dan McLaughlin of Facilities Solutions Group, Don Brown with April Building Services, John Fuquay with United Protective Services, Macy Wallenberg with LandCare, Shelby McDiffit with Flynn Companies, and Victoria Yoveras with Citywide Building Services. Now, while we may cover legal issues, this is not legal advice. Further, due to rapidly changing nature of the law and the COVID-19 virus, we recommend you consult with your legal counsel on this issue before you implement or change any policies or procedures. In today's webinar, we'll answer questions submitted via the online registration. We had a good number of questions submitted, so we do apologize if we don't get to yours. Now, on to our questions. Good morning, panel, or I should say good day.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hello, everyone.
It's so great to see all of you. I know we've all been kind of away from each other these past several weeks, so it's really good to see faces today. You know, as we get started, I wanted to ask questions, something very easy for you guys, I'm sure. I just want to give each of you maybe a 30-second elevator pitch on you and your company, if you don't mind. And since Don is not on screen, I want to start with Don. So Don, do you mind?
Oh, no, that was my strategy all along. Yeah, you know, April Building Services is a high-rise exterior maintenance, window washing, facade caulk, cleaning, window replacement, basically anything you need on the outside of a building. And we do metal refinishing, elevators, doors, things like that, and waterproofing. And then we're also, are you going to get to Carol in a minute also? Because she's an affiliated company. Okay, and that's just kind of a 30-second blurb of what we do. Been in business 30 years in Dallas, support BOMA, and we've been so thankful for the opportunity to assist BOMA and serve over all these years. We're just delighted to be part of BOMA.
Awesome. Thank you, Don. Well, let's go on to Carol.
Thank you. So I'm Carol with AMST. We do elevator interiors. We do custom interiors. And with that, we are associated obviously with Jobs-AMST, which is what April has joined us. And so any elevator needs, we can do anything from repair to custom interiors, standard interiors, and upgrades.
Awesome. Thank you, Carol. Dan, how about you?
Well, FSG has been around for about 37 years, and we do our best to help our clients with their lighting and electrical needs, whether it's service, lighting retrofits, which is what we're seeing a lot of right now, or even ideas of how to even safely disinfect some of the air spaces in their buildings today. So there's a lot of new technologies we can bring to bear. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. John, share with us.
Hello, everybody. I'm John Fuquay with United Protective Services. We provide professional security services throughout the Southwest, and we have offices in Dallas, Frisco, and Fort Worth here locally. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here with everyone today.
Awesome. Next, we'll go to Shelby.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shelby McDiffit. I handle business development for Flynn Companies. We are a total building envelope contractor. And we're actually one of the largest in North America. So we have offices in Canada and the US, And we've been in the DFW market for about 4 years, came in through acquisitions. We can handle everything from roofing and architectural metals to your waterproofing and curtain wall and glazing needs for your building envelope. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelby. Let's go to Ben Manna.
Hey, Jacqueline, thanks. My name is Ben Manna. I'm with Five Energy Advisory Firm. We've been around since 2011 and always here to help with negotiating energy contracts for your buildings, budgets, Energy Star services. So really anything energy related, sustainability related, glad to help with.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Victoria, let's introduce you.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm with Citywide Building Services. We've been around for over 45 years now. We specialize in exterior building maintenance, so we do things like window cleaning, pressure washing. We also install rooftop anchors on high-rise buildings. We do inspections, installations, and we're really happy that we were able to join the call.
Yeah, we're glad to have you with us, Victoria. Macy, tell us about you and your company.
Hi, Macy. I'm with LandCare. We are a commercial landscape maintenance company is our core business. We actually do install, irrigation, hardscapes, anything you can imagine outside for our customers as well. So excuse me while I'm in my car. We're doing a flower install today. So if it gets loud out here, but we're glad to be BOMA members and have been Cornerstone partners for their 3rd year. We're starting.
Awesome. Well, again, we're really glad to have all of you here with us, and thank you in advance for your time today and being willing to share with us your knowledge and how you guys can be a resource to us. As I get into the questions, one of the questions that we'd like to ask is specifically, what changes has your business, well, what changes to your business has the COVID-19 pandemic created, and which of those changes do you think will become permanent?
I'll jump out. I mean, as the only security vendor on here, ours has been pretty significant. In many ways, we've continued to provide service during this pandemic, even though a lot of the buildings are empty or at very low occupancy. Our industry as a whole, I would think, has been very affected for security. Janitorial and the likes can speak to a much more in-depth level of cleaning, but our personnel, we've had to issue them PPE gear, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, things of this nature. In a lot of manners, we are the only people in the building. And as some of the buildings are starting to reopen, there's a lot of questions that I'm sure we'll get to today, but a lot of what we're dealing with is how we can help property managers enforce policies and new protocols. And as speaking for my industry, I fully expect this to cause there to be pandemic response items put in future contracts that will deal with this if this were to ever happen again in the future. And we've learned a lot from it, as we all have, but I'm very interested in hearing what everybody else has to say and glad to speak on the security aspect today.
Great. Thanks, John. Dan.
Well, obviously, because we are still an essential business, working in a lot of buildings with our maintenance crews and our electricians, we now have to wear PPE, hand sanitization of stations available at every job that we do. We're wearing masks, and even my sales team is out there still calling on clients that are calling us having needs today, and we have to follow all those protocols. I have a feeling some of this is going to stick around for some time. You know, maybe we all used to keep a little hand sanitizer in the car, but now we're probably going to have one on our keychain. So I think it's the biggest thing going forward.
Yeah.
The elevator industry is a little bit different. You know, we're not as essential how pretty the elevator looks. It just has to run, of course, and we're not on the maintenance side, but we're very adept to making sure that we're following all of the protocol for CDC, Texas counties, the Texas state, as well as the building management requirement when we enter a building. And, you know, we're in just a box, that elevator box. So we have a lot more, you know, sustainability to make sure we're taking care of all the cleanliness. And we do the mask and the gloves and the hand sanitizers, again, to follow all the protocol. So not being a maintenance company, we have a little bit more, you know, openness to how things are happening because we're sort of a one and done and out of there. So I think the maintenance folks have much more challenges in their changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to
And
Ben.
to
And
further
then I'm
what-
gonna, oh, go ahead, Don.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Don.
to further what Carol's saying, I think we've changed the way we're all going to operate in buildings in terms of hygiene and cleanliness. Who would have thought we'd be checking people's temperature at work, 6 months ago? But I think that may get to be almost a norm going forward. Buildings are going to expect more out of us, and we've got to stay a step ahead of them to make their life easier.
Yeah, yeah. Ben, did you want to add?
Yeah, just lastly, to tack on to what they're saying, operationally, naturally with the buildings being empty, usage has dropped tremendously in a lot of buildings, but with the lack of tenant movement and tenant usage. So one of the things that's challenged a lot of operators to do is to figure out, okay, after this is all over, can we drill into strategies to continue to lower our usage going forward, which, of course helps drive the price down. So
That's good. Anyone else want to add in? Okay. Well, I think
On the same lines, I hate to hog it, but I think we all, and this is not just property managers, but it's vendors and engineers and politicians. We've got to plan ahead. Things aren't going to happen as quickly as we're used to. We used to be a just-in-time society, and we're now, I've got to plan ahead. I got to have the people, I got to have the processes and the materials in place, and that's not going to happen in 12 hours. I've got to stay proactive and not reactive like we used to be.
that's good. That's good. It brings me kind of another question that we had is, are there any potential blind spots that your company has identified and help property management professionals address?
here's one that's kind of interesting. We talked about taking temps of folks coming into the building.
Mhm.
It's one thing to have a temperature and that's great and all, but how do we know, hey, that temperature is related to COVID-19 and not something else? So it'll be interesting to see how everybody adapts to that kind of requirement going forward.
Yeah, that is good. Any other blind spots that you guys think? John? John?
No, I'm sorry. I've talked enough. I don't want to hog the conversation. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. John, if you would.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, and to further what Ben was saying about temperature testing, we've had a lot of inquiries from clients in the real estate community about doing temperature testing. We've only had 2 clients so far that we're actually doing it for, where we had to set up very strict SOP on how we were going to do this, and then take into consideration HIPAA laws and liability. In reading through some of the things that BOMA International has put out, I believe that they are really pushing for low liability limits for building owners. And it almost seems like they're discouraging the temperature testing and things of that nature, because it is only one of, depending on where you read, 9 to 13 symptoms. So you can have a fever and not have COVID. You can have COVID and not have a fever. Some places where our personnel are asking questions of everybody that enters the building, and then it comes down to policies for that building, for that management company, of what do you want to do? What's the temperature? What's the bingo number? Currently, the number that we've been going by in our SOP is 100.4 degrees for that temperature. But it does bring up a lot of questions, and I'll even go further, not to monopolize, but Governor Abbott put out some new information this week, and I don't know if you guys have seen, if anyone's seen the minimum standard health protocols that he put out that are enacted for May 18th for office buildings and office-based employees, but it's very worthy of discussion because some of the protocols almost go in direct conflict with local protocols and even CDC.
Interesting. Anyone else want to add to any potential blind spots that managers should know about? So let's get to another question, kind of going back to your companies. Let's talk about how you see your company being a resource to its clients. What is it that you do that's going to really be able to help property management people as they move from everyone being out of the building due to COVID to more people coming in? Ben?
I'll take this real quick. Again, back to the usage just dropping tremendously for some buildings. We've helped clients communicate that to their current retail electric provider, because those fluctuations can cause punitive penalties, if you will, to their future bills. So being in communication and letting those suppliers know what's coming as far as usage helps the clients out and avoid potential penalties down the road.
That's good. Victoria?
Yeah, so a little bit about what Citywide is doing to help people when moving back into buildings is we've actually partnered with a disinfecting company. So I know that as tenants are starting to move in, as buildings are starting to open up, people are going to be starting to look into disinfecting services, either the tenants themselves or at the property management level. So we've been a resource to help kind of pair some of these property management companies up with our partner vendor to help with the disinfecting services.
That's good. Dan?
One of the things we're kind of doing a little bit of what Victoria's doing is there's a technology you might have read about it so far. It's called Uvc Light, which is on the low spectrum. What it does is it actually disinfects spaces and it disinfects surfaces. So we're working with a lot of clients right now to put these UVC lightings on their air handlers that disinfects the coils. So it continually keeps the air clean in the facility all day long. And in addition, there's also UVC lights that can actually go into space. So if your tenants are there, it's nice that you clean the surfaces, but they can get disinfected right after that. So there's another form of UVC light that you can actually put up that comes on in the middle of the night. And after 15 minutes to a half hour, it actually disinfects every surface in that space. Wow. And so those are the things that we're bringing out there now. This has been around a long time, but nobody's thought about it but hospitals. But now I think commercial buildings are going to have to.
Now everyone wants to. I think I saw Macy raise her hand.
Yeah, so we obviously do everything outside, nothing inside, but we take care of a lot of campuses, and being Dallas, Fort Worth, there's a lot of headquarters in here. So within that, you have individual teams. And so what we're seeing is that a lot of teams are taking their meetings outside, whether their teams are 3 or 4 people or 10 to 20 people, using that space outside because there's more areas they can spread out 6 feet. So we're actually doing disinfectant sprays daily on some sites, using that to help people outside, spraying outer door handles, but spraying benches down, any other common space that people will be trying to get outside into fresh air, to more open spaces.
Wow, that's a good point. I mean, everywhere you go, you see more and more people doing everything outside. So that's interesting. Anyone else?
I'll jump in. Of course, again, we're not maintenance, so it's not an ongoing situation. We certainly don't maintain the elevator's equipment by any means. And how it looks is when we leave it, but how it's going to operate perhaps for management is they're going to be changing the amount of capacity that they want in that elevator. Are we limiting it from, you could fit 12 to 15 people all scrunched down to, I only want 4, 1 in each corner. So their capacities are going to really change. Now, again, not being on the maintenance side, those are things that are going to affect the elevator contractor. Are they going to have to change the capacity of that elevator for it not to hold anymore? So it's going to become more of a legal format. Are they going to change the capacity sign? Is management going to mandate that I only want X amount of people in the cab? So it has to be notified a little bit. And it doesn't affect the interior design, but it does affect the elevator usage, which is going to affect the traffic line, in the building, et cetera. But in the long haul, what I might see is the type of materials they want to put inside the elevator. Is it going to be more non-porous, unlike the fabrics? Is it going to be more glass where you can wipe it down? Is it going to be more stainless where it can be disinfected? Things that might be more cleanable without being porous. Things you have in hospitals, a lot of those kind of surfaces. I think that may be a thought process in the future. It's not certainly that's happening today.
Wow, that's interesting. John, did I see you raise your hand?
I did. The original question was about how we're helping our clients. I think one of the largest things is through communication, and also without a doubt is best shared practices. In my field in security, we have a lot of different vertical markets that we provide security officers to. So an office building, especially one that's somewhat closed, is very different than a large retail shopping center. And the shopping centers are seeing a lot of traffic, even if the shops are not open. We've had things occurring that we're seeing, and we've found, especially in retail, is unauthorized move outs right now. Tenants that are closing up shop and moving out the door. And finding these in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, when there's not as many people there and their businesses have been affected. So it's, we try to share the information as we find it. Sometimes that information is changing daily. And then when Governor Abbott just came out a couple of days ago with new protocols and some new executive orders that affects all of us and supersedes our local orders. So we have, and I'm sure we all on this panel today have clients that are confused or looking for more direction. And so the best thing we can do that I found is communicate and have some answers or be able to point them in the right direction to get those answers, like you good people that are here today.
Absolutely. You mentioned about communication. Another question that came up is people would like to know what creative methods you're using to even stay in touch with your clients. We know that a lot of people aren't taking face-to-face meetings right now. So what are you guys doing to stay in touch? Do you want to start, Shelby?
Yeah, I would love to. For us, well, we've done several things that have worked, and I can speak to it externally with customers and then internally just with our staff in the Flynn DFW branch. But one of the things with our customers that has worked really well and allowed us to pivot pretty quickly is we already have a service app mobile tool for those emergency repairs or requests that come up. So it kind of allowed our service team from office all the way out into the field to pivot really quickly into contactless repairs and invoicing and requests. So that just kind of, you know, it was something that remained easy. We've kind of already been doing, but really came into play during this time. And then internally, I'm sure everyone has participated in everything virtual that you possibly can at this point. One of the things that we really loved within our office is doing virtual lunches or happy hours, whether that's internally with our team or pivoting and doing that with our customers as well. They've been really fun, and we've had some people say, like, let's keep it up. Let's do it even after we can all start to get back into restaurants and happy hour spots. So that's been really fun for us. I'm sure everyone's had some sort of virtual thing that's really taken off within their teams.
Yeah, those have been fun. I think, Ben?
Yeah, so one thing to add to what Shelby said, we did a trivia night, a virtual trivia night with some folks. We partnered together, and that seems to be a fun distraction from maybe the additional stresses and challenges from COVID. So that's something we hope to continue, and maybe not just a virtual, but move it to a restaurant bar location after all this stuff shakes out. So yeah, definitely being creative and thinking outside the box. You know, it's a lot of folks aren't really comfortable with Zoom or even sharing their video, but it's been awesome to see, you know, people adapt and kind of accept that new technology as a norm.
That's it. That's true. Anyone else want to share your creative ways of communicating?
Oh, one thing, I'm so sorry, I forgot to mention this. You know, Friends of Five, we actually had one of our partners, his daughter is at the Pratt Art Institute. And so for the kiddos of Five, we had a Zoom art class for several weeks. And then we just recently opened that up to some of the friends and family of Five. So that was kind of another neat thing, you know, with the kiddos at home, you know, folks trying to do their day-to-day job and homeschool. That's been kind of a nice additional distraction for them.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, we know that, you know, things are changing and they're changing rapidly. When we start talking about codes that you have to operate under, do you anticipate any codes will be updated to reflect our experiences from COVID-19, and how soon do you expect those will happen? Carol? Carol?
Yep. In the elevator industry, codes don't change fast. They're a 3-year review time, et cetera.
Yeah.
And being in the elevator, again, it's a matter of, this isn't about the health and concerns. Our elevator codes are about the safety factor of it, you know, the equipment running, et cetera. But I can see that it'll be a big topic of discussion. It may be, how do we change it to assist with such things as how many people are entering the elevator? Do we change our capacity numbers, things of that nature? But as far as the elevator industry goes, I don't see that this being a direct response to our codes. And it would be 3 years from now.
Understand. Anyone else? Okay. The next question that our participants had is, how are you handling site visits? What are you doing differently now that you weren't doing before? Victoria?
Yeah, so once this all kind of started, people weren't, it was panic mode, right? So people weren't really willing to have anybody in the buildings. Now that's since changed. Something that we did that was actually very effective is typically building engineers have been in the buildings this entire time. And we still need to see things like anchors on the roof. We still need to see just different areas that people are asking for quotes for or just asking questions about. And we have definitely been leveraging technology. I've had very many FaceTime calls where building engineers will be walking around the building showing me different equipment at the building. Now that things are, it feels like things are becoming more positive, more people are getting out into the world. So people are a little bit more willing to meet with us face to face, but we still have PPE gear. We're wearing our face masks, we're wearing gloves. Both our technicians and our sales people are doing the same.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Victoria. Anyone else?
I can go. We're
Lisa.
seeing it. We're seeing a big effect. You know, we've got the face mask on. We've got them ready at all times for our guys, all of our teams. But a big thing for us was that we had to adjust how we pack our trucks. And so we usually, you know, try to fit 5 or 6 team members in a truck to get a property service. And now we're having to do 3 to 4 guys depending on the truck size. So just having longer weeks to make sure that all of our customers get service. And then that we're sanitizing. You know, we have backpack sprayers that we use for weeds and turf beds, and now we're using those backpack sprayers to put Clorox sanitizer in to spray down trucks, equipment, to keep our guys as safe as possible so that when they visit our customer sites, they're clean and sanitized so they're not infecting their tenants as well.
Oh, that's good.
You know, a lot of this, I think, is communication and comfort. You know, our job is to make property management easier and more efficient. We don't need to cause problems. We need to solve problems. And one thing we've done, I bet a lot of people on this panel have too, I'm not just talking to myself, we take everybody's temperature and check in the morning before they leave the shop to be sure we're not sending somebody sick to the building. My nightmare at night is one of my guys coming down sick and having contaminated the whole building. And I bet everybody on this panel feels the same way and is doing the same things.
And you know, in my industry, our people are on site 24/7 in most cases. So we've had to change the way we do several things. When it comes to visiting our clients, particularly, I'm sure as most of us, I miss that interaction of going by, stopping by and seeing them. As for us actually inspecting our officers on site, we've had to change our protocols, whereas no longer can they take the iPad and have them sign when we do a on-site inspection. We're having to limit the interactions between the our supervisors that drive the city at night or in the off hours checking on our on-site officers, to the point where sometimes they pull up outside, they make a phone call to the officer, check that they're okay. They're able to look at their digital real-time paperwork to make sure that they're keeping up with it, but a lot less of actually walking into the building, talking to them, as little as we can control that human interaction, just so if one person has it, they're not spreading it. And I will say we have about 1,500 employees here in the state of Texas, and we had our first positive case just this week in the Metroplex, and we're having a pretty good rate of not having people infected. And that person was isolated very quickly. Things were taken care of, and we dealt with the property management, the janitorial. Everybody worked together to make sure that everything was properly sanitized, and we moved forward, and that person's in quarantine. But I'm sure everyone's got a story of some of that. But for having gone almost 8 weeks and have our first person to actually have a positive, I thought was a really good streak of good luck that ended this week.
Yeah, especially with all that you have to do and all the places that your guys have to go. So.
Yes, ma'am.
let's see. So another question that's come up is people are wondering if you're seeing any mistakes being made as managers deal with reentry. I would like to put it, is there anything you see that maybe people could do better?
I would just like to make a comment on that one. I don't know
Okay,
that
Dan.
anybody, I don't know that anybody knows how this book is going to turn out yet.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say they're making mistakes. They're all working together to try to come up with what works for their facility. I mean, you can see Cushman and Wakefield's already dealt with this over in China. So there's some guidelines for people doing it. So I would never classify as our wonderful clients making any mistakes.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like
I,
that.
I would say that as things do move towards reopening, you can't go wrong with communication. Rely on your vendors, rely on the allies. In a lot of instances, it's our job to know what the municipal or state or federal policies are, and these things are changing daily. Again, earlier I referred to the minimum standard health protocols that the governor's office just put out late Tuesday that supersede everything local. And again, I've had a lot of clients call me about that particular document. If you haven't seen it yet, it says it goes into effect May the 18th, and it's effective for office-based employees. And it's got a lot of information on there that I have not heard in the general public or the news. Again, it's 3 days old, and people are digesting this, but it's basically saying that if you have an office, you can only have the greater of 5 employees or 25% of your office max. It's also got things in there that say recommended you should send people home for quarantine if they have one of a multitude of symptoms. And some of those symptoms are as simple as a cough or a headache. I don't know how you can really regulate that. And it's very clear. It talks about this is for people in the office or building, contractors and the like, and visitors. And these are very confusing times. And I would think there's a lot of educated people on the vendor side, and continue to talk to us, because again, we have recommendations that we can make, things that are working elsewhere. And the more information that a real estate manager can gather, then probably the better they are to make an educated decision on how they want to reopen their particular facility.
Yeah, definitely. Information is golden.
Can I make one more quick
Go
comment?
ahead. And then I'll go to Shelby.
Sure. Quick comment is not a mistake. I'd like to give kudos to a lot of the property managers, because what we're seeing is, like Victoria said, the building engineers have been there the whole time working in the buildings. We have seen them accelerate things that could be done when there's less people in the building. Mm-hmm. So go in there, make that change, fix that property, get those things done, and it allows us to go in and have less problems with having to fight a lot of people to get it done. And so I think that's really kudos to the building people that are looking forward and moving things ahead while they have this time.
Yes, I agree. Shelby, you wanted to add?
Yeah, just right in line with what everyone else is saying, and definitely to everyone's point, I mean, no mistake, because we're all learning as we go. It seems like we get over one hurdle and there's another one in front of us as we're kind of navigating all of this. But I think the biggest thing that I've commended Flynn on in just our reopening is we've been essential this entire time, but everyone who's able and can work from home has been doing so that we could support those that aren't able to do that and have to be out in the field. And, whenever May 1st rolled around, we weren't all rushing back to the office space immediately, even though we're all missing each other and wanting to kind of be back in person. I think maybe a slower reentry and kind of doing things in phases, as a lot of companies have announced, just testing the waters as it could be, rather than, rushing back really quickly. That way we can sort of navigate how to continue to move forward.
Yeah, that's good. I have another question that came up, and it has, we know that teamwork is everyone working together. So the question is, what can real estate members do to help make our vendors' lives easier during this transition time? Who wants to take that?
I'll jump out there. Or Victoria. Go ahead, Victoria.
Victoria, go ahead and then we'll go to John.
I echo just what everybody has been saying is more communication is key. I know that the individual property management companies are making changes on a daily basis, things that even they're finding out. And sometimes it's going to affect the vendors. Like once the buildings went on lockdown, it was good to know that the buildings were going on lockdown because some of our jobs, for example, are just goes. So a just go means we don't schedule. It's something. It's a monthly contract. And so if we don't know that the building is on lockdown and we send a crew out to the building, that starts to affect us. So over communication is key here. Like I said earlier, if different rules and regulations are implemented within the company that you all know is going to start affecting the vendors, a notice would be great to have in advance.
Good. John, you want to follow up on that?
I can't stress enough communication. As far as the real estate members, just being clear and concise on what they want. In my industry, where we have on-site staff, we've had to make a lot of adjustments, especially in the retail sector, where large retail properties may want to cut back on their security staffs. And then I feel it's my job and people like me to educate them on what that's the causation of that, how it's going to affect their security team. If you cut back 3 full-time officers, let's say for 120 hours a week, I had this happen probably 2 weeks ago, and from 2 different clients. One client said, let's just cut back and we'll deal with that. Of course, they're dealing with rent abatement issues, right? Every one of their tenants is not wanting to pay their rent during this time. And then I had another client that wanted the same thing, but they said, look, I'm going to pay those officers because they're already, it's in my budget. So when the governor came out and just recently and said, hey, May 1st, we're going to do this, and now May 18th, we're going to do this, one of the clients said, hey, I need those officers back. Well, that was the client that had us remove them and backtrack. Well, a couple of them went on to other things, moved to other properties and so forth. The one that had the client or the officers actually continue to work, but on a rotating shift where they get a day or 2 off, we were just able to call those people that day and say, hey, you're back to work full schedule tomorrow. And it's different in every industry, but that communication and us as the knowledgeable people about our particular industry can be extremely helpful to show them how this may affect you, not just tomorrow, but next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road, if that makes sense. And I could go on and on, but I'll pass that on.
Yeah.
It does. I see that Macy
Sure.
has her hand up, so let's let Macy jump in.
Hi, yeah, I think just like John said, it kind of relates to people are doing a lot more with a lot less these days, whether it's us in landscaping, putting less guys in a truck, so they're spending more time on the property. It's property managers with less tenants because people are trying to get out of leases, and everyone trying to just help out and understanding that it's not normal and it's going to become the new norm, which is sad, but for a while just working together, figuring things out, just like us, our guys are going to be on properties longer than they used to be. I know our property managers have been great with, hey, this is not your normal service day, but I can fit you in right now because we have less guys. It's taking us longer to do things on site, and we're wanting to take care of everybody within our 1 week service period that we do for all of our clients. So I think everybody's been really great about working together from that standpoint and getting through the new normal.
That's good. That's good. If I can move on to another question, there's a question that came up. What is the best way to get information about special products during this time? And I know each of you have in your own area have different products. Dan mentioned earlier products that are in the hospital that, already in the hospital, but that now office buildings are looking at. So for you, what is the best way to get information about special products that might be beneficial? I think Carol even mentioned something to that effect as well.
Yes, we are a product company and we fabricate and assemble and install those products. So if you're trying to just keep them aware of what they could consider, budget, needs that they would have maybe in the future, You know, you have different, besides the Zoom, the emails, there's the SMS, which is short message service, because you actually do a presentation on that, and it's in a text format. So they might take a quick look at that versus being over inundated with emails. You can also, you know, do special delivery, show them that new product with a actually delivery to their office so they can touch and feel it, that no contact kind of a format that way, and then maybe have a Zoom meeting and say, what did you think of it? How do you like it? How's it touch? Blah, blah, blah. So it's a matter of probably trying to make that product or that idea more visible to the customer.
Good. Dan, were you going to add?
I was. I mean, we have done some with some of this new technology out. I think email's a great way to throw it out there because we're not trying to bother the real estate people. We're just trying to say, hey, this is out there. If you're interested, let us help you. We're also doing some webinars, weekly webinars for both either the commercial space or the healthcare space. Little different things you can look at. You can look in and say, hey, I'm going to see if I'm interested in this or not. Because again, everybody's busy. Some are working from home. But if it's of interest, they'll get a hold of you.
Good deal.
Are we not doing cold calls? Did I not get the message?
Not right now. Not right now. No.
Then I'm free this afternoon. All my Friday cold calls. Done.
Let's see, another question. And this is just your thought. What frequency of communication is viewed as helpful and informative versus pestering? How much do you think managers can take before they feel pestered? Who wants to start?
I'll jump in there. I'll tell you, our company has put out communiques about once a week from the president of our company, not only to our employees, but our clients. And I talk to the clients. When we send this out, I feel like they're getting this probably from every vendor in every sector, trying to explain. So we're trying to be helpful, but at the same time, not inundate them with useless information. If something comes out that's a new protocol, federal, state, or local, we try to make them aware of how it's affecting our security team, and then follow up with that question. And in this time, I've dealt with my clients, since I can't see them face to face as much, a lot more by text and cell phone because they're home, and that's just the easier way to do it these days. And it can be, sometimes it's a 1-minute conversation. Hey, are you aware of this? Chew on this and get back to me, because this is how real world it's going to affect your security team. And so that's kind of the best way we've done, is just not inundate them with minutia that's not important to them. People want information and they want it to be relevant and practical. How can we make them look good to their owners?
Thanks, John. Ben?
Yeah, to add on to what John's saying, is it relevant in this day and age? And so we have a couple different ways. To his point, text, cell phone call, if it's relevant, keep it short. But we just had something change as far as encore rates because of all this COVID thing, and that was going to affect everybody's electricity budget. So we reached out, cell phone, text, to just say, hey, just to let you know this is changing because of what's going on. And also, we have a publication similar to what John mentioned, a monthly 5x5, and we just kind of layered it in there so that folks that we know will read that, will see that information, and gives them a chance to follow up with us if they want further info. So.
Awesome. Shelby, did you want to add?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Look like I raised my hand. I'm moving around in my chair here, getting
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ask our participants, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box as we round out these last few questions that I have. And so guys, my next question to you is give us some of your wisdom. What are your top 2 tips for property managers during this time? And I want to start with Don, since we can't see him.
Well, I'll be simple because I kind of already said this, but I'll repeat it. Plan ahead. Things take longer than they used to. And number 2, be patient. And I'm sure all of our guys are seeing the same thing. They're still a little hesitant to come in. They're willing to work, but you still got to kind of get them used to coming in. You got to tell them, here's what's going to take. The world's changing, and they're a little hesitant to adapt. We've all got to be patient as we move forward and plan ahead.
Yeah, very good. Carol?
I like what Don said, definitely the patience, because everything is new and they have to, go through this, and the understanding that it's new for everybody. But also, I think if we could involve more training, not only with our staff, but maybe even assisting with management, the training of how this industry, be it, what John does and Don does, and mine's so minor compared to everyone else's daily events, what's going to happen if we can train them this way. I think their expectations and their timeline that they understand takes a little bit longer to accomplish all that new protocol.
Yeah, good deal. Dan?
So training and patience.
Training and patience. Dan?
I think that we're going to have to be able to look outside the box now. I think we're going to have to look with doing more with less, both. I mean, some vendors, folks, we've had to furlough some people too, and certainly real estate people will probably be furloughed down the road, because a lot of the tenants are going through tremendous change right now. So that's going to be a big change. And then look out of the box for the new technologies that will help you do things easier. Even like back in Carol's point, people are trying to, how can people not press the elevator button to get on the elevator? How can we do things contactless? And then how can we keep our spaces disinfected? So this is going to be a next boom from here, is how everything's going to be done differently.
Yeah, good. John, you want to share? John?
Oh, that's me. Yeah, these guys said it very, very well. I mean, there's so many different things, and right now that the real estate community has to take into effect. And let me just tell you from my side of it, where Carol talks about the interiors and the other people that clean the interiors of the elevators and so forth, there's protocols coming out, like recent governor's orders, that say masks should be required to wear on an elevator, or how many people should be on an elevator. Well, my security teams at these office buildings, they have to police that potentially. So we are not the police, but yet we will enact and enforce our clients' policies. So the real estate community just needs to be able to come to a conclusion. I'm happy to help, as are everybody on here, to understand what that might be. And then we have to enforce that. So for every little thing that's happening here, there's also the enforcement aspect, whether there's security in a building, or it's the engineers, or if it's the property management staff, or if it's the actual police or sheriff's department, who's doing this. There's a lot of things that we could all talk about that would be ideal, and nobody will ever get sick again, and we'll live in a utopia and nobody dies. But the reality is a lot of people are not enforcing this. I don't know if I should say this, but I had a young lady come into my office this morning here in Frisco to apply for a job, came in to our lobby, which is restricted from the interior. And one of the guys, while doing her background check here in my office, realized that she had been on the news a month ago for making threats in Carrollton, Texas, and was arrested for saying she had COVID and was going to spread it around. Y'all might have seen this on the news. She was in my lobby this morning looking for a job. Of course, we ran her out. And we immediately sanitized the entire lobby area and anything she might have touched. But this is happening every day in every office building, especially where the general public can come in. So it really comes back to the real estate community. What length are you going to go to? I know the janitorial companies right now, whether they're doing electrostatic cleaning or, forgive my naivety, the fumigating of buildings or offices, they're doing this probably every single day. They just can't keep up, I'm sure, in some cases. I can't speak to that. But again, the real estate community has a lot on their hands, and they have to come back and make these decisions for their ownership and the people that they report to. And it's significant, and we all are a part of it. It takes a village. And I think everybody here on this call is effectively prepared to answer those questions to their clients.
Yeah, so one of the things is definitely some decisions have to be made so that they can be enforced. Shelby, what are your top 2 tips for managers during this time?
I think my number 1 tip is to stay connected and not be afraid to try a new way of getting work done. I'm seeing that we're kind of coming out of the neutral state that we were all in, but whenever this first hit, I think everyone was frozen in a sense of how do we work from home with our families at home? How do we adjust to this new environment and this new way of doing things? And now that we're coming out of it, same as everyone else is saying, is, you know, it's going to maybe take a little more time, or we're going to have to take a different avenue to get to the end result that we're used to seeing. But I think that we should just keep communicating with one another and stay creative to get that stuff done. My second tip would be to make sure that you're contracting with a company that has a vetted and compliant safety protocol in place. Not just speaking to, obviously we're a contractor, so that's really important, but also just speaking to how they treat the overall health and well-being of their employees, because you know that that will translate into how they're treating your staff and your environment as well. So those would be my top 2 tips.
Oh, thank you, Shelby. Those are good. Ben, you want to share your top 2 tips?
Sure. Well, I really probably only have one. It's just don't be afraid to look at new technology that's coming from all of this. I think one of the things, we've already mentioned it, how to get an elevator open without contacting or touching the button. Another thing is just, there's a lot of smart building technology out there that's going to come from all this. So be open to listening to some of that, because your owners are probably going to be really interested in some of that information as things progress.
That's good. Thank you. Victoria?
Yeah, I think, so my top 2 would be plan and communicate. I think for so long we've been reactive to this whole situation, and it's definitely time to start being proactive. It's become apparent that people are going to be they're going to be let into buildings a whole lot more now. And we have to plan for how you're going to accept visitors, how you're going to accept your tenants, how you're going to accept just different people walking through the building. So that needs to be planned out, and communicate those things to both your team, to your vendors, and to visitors that are coming onto the site.
Very good. Thank you, Victoria. And Macy, are you able to share with us your top 2?
Yeah, I think I'm like Ben. I probably only have one. I think it's just don't be afraid to ask. I know I said we're all really busy, but we're all willing to help. Property managers, anyone in BOMA, everyone's always willing to help. So, I mean, I had one this week. We don't do interior flowers, but I know through one of my properties, there's a really great interior flower company. And so I was able to help a different customer with that, even though we couldn't. So even if one of us that's on this call can't do it, we know somebody in BOMA that does it really well because we've seen it on our property. So don't be afraid to ask for help. It's crazy times and we're all out. We're on properties every day, a lot of us, so don't be afraid to ask us to look at something weird. If you need me to climb on a roof, then that's what I need to do. But just don't be afraid to ask.
That's good. That's really good advice from each of you guys. I have one more question I want to ask each of you, and it's just a single answer. As I asked in the last webinar, what is one good thing that has come out of this time, either personally or professionally for you? And we'll start with Dan this time.
I just think that this new technology, to me, it's really exciting. The UVC is we're able to help show people how to create a safer space that disinfects it, to protect their tenants and their employees and for everybody's well-being.
Awesome. Carol?
I think personally, to understand everyone has well, to really respect everyone's version of social distancing. You know, to some people, it's just ecstatically the most important thing. And to others, it's, yeah, I get it. So to really respect what they need and to make sure that you're accommodating them.
Awesome. Ben, what's one good thing that's come out of this time for you, either personally or professionally?
Mine's definitely personally, and it's been family time. Just having 3 kiddos at home and being able to really enjoy each evening with them and not have to rush from one event to the next or manage all that time. We've been at home together a lot more. So game nights, playing outside. My 4-year-old son learned to ride a bike without training wheels. So a lot of fun stuff. So definitely family time.
That's awesome. Shelby?
I'm going to echo what Ben said. Mine's definitely more personal. But yeah, I think being forced to shelter in place caused me to realize kind of the constant state of busyness that I was living in. And I think we can all agree that work is absolutely important, but it's not always the most important thing. And so having this time to connect with family and friends and, just do a deeper dive into connecting to your community or serving others has been really nice. And it's kind of shown me where some priorities can shift, and I've enjoyed it.
That's nice. John, how about you? What's been the best thing that's come out of all of this?
Well, outside of, my personal life, because I have to agree with them, it's great being around family, but professionally, being able to empower other leaders in my company. I mean, we have a lot of employees. We're on the site. In the beginning, there was a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. Our employees, they were asking, hey, is this an environment that I even want to work in? And to assure those people. And then I personally have led weekly phone calls with supervisors throughout our company, throughout the Southwest. And I try to give them leadership tips, and to see some people grow, myself, other people around me, to be the leader that they can be, to step up and calm the fears of other people has been absolutely fascinating to me. And on a personal side, I miss sports, and I do realize how much, how into baseball and football and all this stuff I was, and without it, I think my work is getting a lot more out of me these days, honestly.
Awesome. Macy, are you able to talk to us? Are you able to tell us what?
Yeah, I think ours sadly using it now, but we're out a lot and this is our busiest season. So all of this kind of happened right at the realm of things. And so Zoom has been a blessing for our team. We're able to see each other, talk to each other, and not have to leave our properties, not have to travel 30 minutes to get back for a branch meeting or anything. So we're getting a lot more valuable time on our properties, but we're also still getting to see each other and have team time and talk about family. So I think sadly, Zoom has been such an awesome blessing from a work standpoint.
Yeah, that is good. Good. Shelby, how about you? Okay, we'll go to Don and then we'll come back to Shelby. Don?
Mine's a little more kind of business, person related. It seems like as everybody's gone through this hardship, I see everybody being more concerned about others as people, and that's in the business relationships. I mean, just when you talk to people, they seem concerned about you and vice versa and their people and their tenants. It's kind of made us aware of how we're humans and not just all machines out working in the workplace. And that's a wonderful thing, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, I agree. Shelby, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good.
Share with us what you feel the one good thing that's come out of all of this has been.
Yeah, I had shared just a few minutes ago. I think for me, it was just kind of a shift in priorities and getting to do more family and friend time.
Awesome. Well, guys, that was the easiest question I had to ask you guys today. I want to take this time to thank each of you on our panel for your time and for your expertise. Again, it's so good to see each of you and to hear your voices. I also want to thank everyone who submitted questions, and also each of you, our participants, for joining us today. Then I want to give many thanks to our BOMA Greater Dallas Cornerstone partners for their support. They are April Building Services, AMST Elevator Interiors, Interstate Restoration, LandCare, Mooring Construction and Restoration. And then finally, we know there's so much information that you need. Therefore, we've compiled all of our COVID-19 webinars and documents on our website under the COVID-19 resource page at bomadallas.org. And so that concludes our presentation for today. So we just want to thank everyone and to tell you to have a great day. Thanks again.
Same to you, Jacqueline, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacqueline.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.